In this episode of The Simpsons, the family decides to go on a camping trip with their newly purchased RV. However, things quickly go awry when Homer's overconfidence leads them down an uncertain path. The episode kicks off with Homer and Bart doing some yard work when Ned Flanders arrives in his shiny new RV, rubbing his latest acquisition in their faces. Determined to keep up with the Flanders, Homer drags the family to Bob's RV roundup in search of an RV of their own. There they meet Bob, the charismatic RV salesman who takes them on the tour of the ultimate behemoth, an impressive RV that has Homer and the kids in awe. Marge, however, is worried about the cost and keeps asking Bob for the price tag, but he brushes her off knowing it's out of their price range. Homer asks for the price, and Bob takes him into the office to run a credit check on his computer. Homer mistakenly thinks the siren that goes off means he's been approved, but Bob reveals that he's been rejected due to his poor credit rating. Desperate to not leave empty-handed, Homer pleads with Bob to show him something that's within his budget. Bob shows them the most rundown and beaten up RV on the lot, but Homer, under pressure to make a purchase, ends up buying it despite his family's objections. After purchasing the RV, the Simpson family loads up and sets out on the camping trip, with Homer eager to show off his brand new purchase to Flanders. However, things quickly take a turn for the worse when Homer decides to take a less traveled path instead of sticking to the interstate. Ignoring Marge's warnings to turn back or consult a map, Homer confidently drives through a forest, proclaiming his RV to be an all-terrain vehicle. But things take a dramatic turn when Homer suddenly stops the RV, which tips over the edge of a cliff and explodes at the bottom, leaving the Simpson family stranded in the middle of nowhere. Homer, claiming to be an experienced woodsman, builds a makeshift shelter for Marge, Lisa, and Maggie. He takes Bart along to find help, but when they mistake Maggie sucking on her pacifier for a rattlesnake, they run away, leaving Maggie behind. Meanwhile, Marge and Lisa build a better shelter and seem to be more competent at camping than Homer. Maggie encounters a bear who she befriends by sticking an extra pacifier in its mouth. The bear then takes Maggie to its cave, where she is accepted by 3 other bears. After Homer and Bart fall down the waterfall, Homer sees Bart's lucky cat float by and assumes Bart has drowned, but is relieved to see Bart alive, and they both realize they are now naked after falling over the waterfall. They search for food and fail to catch rabbits. Meanwhile, the bears steal items from another family's campsite and bring them back to Maggie. At night, Marge and Lisa make a fire and prepare for bed, while Homer and Bart shiver without a fire and Maggie sleeps warmly with her new bear family. After their eventful night, Homer and Bart wake up hungry and stumble upon a beehive. Homer decides to steal some honey, but the bees attack him, causing him to jump into a nearby muddy stream. A cameraman filming a nearby deer catches footage of the muddy, honey-covered Homer, and the news quickly spreads that Bigfoot has been spotted. A 5,000 reward is offered for Bigfoot's capture, and the area becomes overrun with Bigfoot hunters and merchandise. Meanwhile, Marge and Lisa have been rescued by a park ranger and are surprised to learn about the Bigfoot craze. They soon realize that the Bigfoot everyone is after is actually Homer, who is still covered in mud. As Homer and Bart wander through the woods, they stumble upon the bear cave where Maggie is staying. Just as the bears are about to attack, Maggie communicates with them and they calm down. Homer and Bart retrieve Maggie and continue their journey through the woods. Unfortunately, their luck runs out when they are mistaken for Bigfoot by hunters, and Homer is shot with a tranquilizer gun. He is then studied and tested, but ultimately released. Dr. Marvin Monroe announces that the evidence is inconclusive as to whether or not Homer is Bigfoot. Back at home, Homer is worried about being teased at work, but Marge comforts him. The episode opens with Bart, Lisa, and Maggie watching Krusty the Clown on TV. During the show, Sideshow Bob is reluctantly shot from a cannon for a girl's birthday wish. An episode of Itchy and Scratchy titled Burning Love is also shown. Marge is upset by the violence and calls Homer to buy ice cream. Homer is apprehensive due to Patty and Selma's upcoming dull slideshow. At the Quickie Mart, Homer witnesses someone resembling Krusty robbing Apu at gunpoint, which Homer then reports the Krusty lookalike to the police. A SWAT team arrests Krusty in his apartment. The news of Krusty's arrest absolutely devastates Bart. On the news, Kent Brockman discusses Krusty's upcoming trial and history, mentioning his pacemaker. Reverend Lovejoy calls for burning Krusty merchandise. The next day, Bart and Lisa are surprised by Krusty's appearance at the courthouse. He's makeup-free, wearing a prison uniform, and notably lacking his oversized shoes. In court, Homer gets called up as a witness to identify Krusty as the robber. At home, Homer and Marge then collect Krusty merchandise for a public burning. At the trial, Krusty's illiteracy is exposed when he can't identify betting slips. This links him to the robbery as audits reveal his substantial illegal gambling losses, which he confesses. The jury then convicts him. Back home, Lisa and Maggie watch Sideshow Bob, now on TV. He vows an educational yet itchy and scratchy inclusive show. Bart disagrees, believing Krusty's innocence, and persuades Lisa to help prove it. Bart and Lisa visit the Quickie Mart to examine the security footage with Apu's reluctant permission. Lisa spots inconsistencies in the case. The robber used the microwave marked unsafe for pacemaker users, and he read a magazine despite Krusty's illiteracy revealed in court. She concludes that Krusty was framed and asks if he had enemies. Bart suggests they consult Krusty's best friend, Sideshow Bob. Bart, Lisa, and Maggie visit him, but he's busy starting his show and offers them tickets. Bart joins Bob on stage during a segment called Choices. Bart reveals his belief that Krusty was framed, but Bob disputes their evidence. Bart remembers the shoe detail and realizes Bob is the robber. He confronts Bob, smashes his shoe, and elicits a matching yell. Bart exposes Sideshow Bob's big feet, and the audience turns against him. The police, eating donuts while watching, see their oversight and head straight to the studio. Outside the studio, Bob is arrested and admits to framing Krusty due to his frustration with being humiliated for ratings and Krusty's reckless spending. Sideshow Bob wanted his intelligence appreciated in an educational show. He credits the Simpson kids for his capture, vowing revenge on Bart. The charges against Krusty are dropped, and he's reconciled with the community. Krusty forgives them and thanks Bart for his integrity. Bart then hangs a photo of him and Krusty in his room before going to bed, surrounded by new merchandise. The episode opens with Bart and Homer watching the commercial for a monster truck rally featuring the giant robotic dinosaur. The rally's grand finale is a daredevil stunt by the legendary world's greatest daredevil, Lance Murdoch, who performs an incredible and dangerous stunt that lands him in the hospital. Despite his first stunt ended in injury, Bart persists and continues to push the limits. He jumps over a swimming pool, animals, and even Homer while he's sleeping, showcasing his fearless spirit. On a class trip to Springfield Gorge, Bart announces that he will be jumping over the gorge. Homer, filled with rage, decides to tackle the gorge himself in a bid to demonstrate to Bart the foolishness of risking one's life for no reason. Bart, afraid of seeing his father to get hurt, retracts his previous statement about wanting to jump the gorge. However, before he knows it, Homer finds himself riding Bart's skateboard down the ramp towards the jump. Homer then becomes airborne, and honestly, for a moment, it did look like he was going to make it.
This is the greatest thrill of my life!
But unfortunately, he ultimately crashes down. Personally, I remember watching this scene when I was younger, thinking it was one of the funniest scenes I've ever witnessed. In this episode, Homer attempts to build a spice rack for Marge, but Maggie hits him on the head with a mallet. Later on, Maggie tries to stab Homer with a pencil after watching an episode of the violent cartoon The Itchy and Scratchy Show. Marge blames the show for Maggie's behavior and bans Bart and Lisa from watching it. Despite the ban, Bart and Lisa still find a way to watch the show. Marge writes a letter to the producers asking them to tone down the violence, but Roger Myers Jr., who is the CEO of Itchy and Scratchy, dismisses her concerns. Marge decides to take action and show that one person can make a difference. Marge starts a group called Springfieldians for non-violence, understanding, and helping, and starts to protest outside the Itchy and Scratchy studios. Marge's protest gains momentum and more people join, eventually leading to protests at the Krusty the Clown show, which airs Itchy and Scratchy. Marge appears on Kent Brockman's show and urges concerned parents to send letters to Roger Myers Jr. The studio receives enough angry letters to prompt Myers to eliminate violence in the show. The first new non-violence episode is released, but Bart, Lisa, and the other kids across Springfield reject it. A montage then follows showing the children engaging in wholesome outdoor activities. Marge is finally pleased, but members of the group urge her to protest against Michelangelo's David. Marge initially agrees, but ultimately realizes that it's hypocritical to protest censorship in one form of art but not another. She gives up her anti-cartoon violence protest, and Itchy and Scratchy returns to its original form. Grandpa Simpson goes back to the retirement castle after a disappointing family outing. On the same day, he meets Beatrice Simmons due to a mix-up with their pills. They fall in love and start dating. Grandpa plans to give Beatrice a birthday present. However, Homer assumes Grandpa is being grumpy and refuses to join their monthly outing. The family ends up stuck in a car surrounded by hungry lions at Discount Lion Safari. After being rescued the next morning, Grandpa returns home expecting to see Bee. Sadly, he discovers that she has passed away from a burst ventricle theatrical while he was out with the family. Grandpa is heartbroken by the turn of events. Homer apologizes, but Grandpa is too upset to listen. Blaming Homer for missing Beatrice's final moments, Grandpa disowns him as his son. Shortly after, Lionel Hutz, Beatrice's estate executor, visits Grandpa. It turns out Beatrice was wealthy and left him an inheritance of $106,000. However, Beatrice's stipulation allows Grandpa to spend the money as he pleases. While on a roller coaster, Beatrice appears to Grandpa as a poltergeist and suggests that if the money doesn't bring him joy, he should use it to help others. Grandpa visits the Simpsons at Beatrice's request and forgives Homer during dinner. He announces his plan to donate Beatrice's money and invites people to share their stories to determine who needs it the most. The local media picks up the story, causing a long line of requests. Even reporter Camp Brockman joins the line. After multiple interviews, Grandpa struggles to choose a deserving recipient due to the overwhelming need in the community. He takes a walk to clear his mind and realizes that the remaining funds wouldn't be enough to help everyone who needs it. Acting on Jasper's idea, he goes on a senior citizen gambling trip to potentially increase the money. Worried, Homer intervenes and manages to stop Grandpa from losing it all in a game of roulette. Outside the casino, Homer asks Grandpa if he has figured out what to do with the inheritance. Grandpa then reveals that he decided to use the money to renovate the retirement home and dedicates the dining room in Beatrice's honor. Homer notices an ad for an essay contest where the winner receives an all-expense-paid trip to Washington, D.C. An interested Lisa retrieves the magazine and plans to write her own essay and enter the contest. After several children from different parts of the country read their essays at their respective regional finals, Lisa's essay is met with high marks from the judges. However, one of the judges thinks that her essay was too good and she might have received help from her parents. The judge confronts Homer, and after a brief conversation, she realizes that Homer couldn't have helped Lisa.
Could you touch your nose for me?
She gives Lisa extra points for having a less than intelligent father, which secures her victory for the regional finals. The next morning, with everyone still asleep, Lisa gets up and pays a visit to a memorial to find inspiration for the essay finals that day. As Lisa admires a monument, Arnold and a lobbyist meet together, believing they are alone. Lisa watches in horror as Arnold accepts a suitcase full of money from the lobbyist in exchange for lodging permits for the Springfield National Forest. Lisa wanders around Washington, D.C. alone and is torn about what to do with her essay, as she no longer believes in what she has written, and she suddenly comes up with an idea for a new essay, saying the truth must be told. Lisa reads her newly written essay that is filled with anger and rage towards the American government. She then calls out the government for its corruption and divulges the information she's learned about Congressman Arnold and his bribe taking. The audience gasps and boos as Lisa finishes her essay. When Homer purchases a newspaper, he sees the headline about the expulsion of Congressman Arnold. When Lisa sees the headline, her faith in democracy is restored. She realizes that her actions have led to positive change and that the truth is always worth fighting for. It all starts with a stroke of bad luck for Bart, as he crashes his skateboard and ends up stumbling into the legitimate businessman's social club, owned by none other than Fat Tony and his gang, which if you didn't know, this was the first episode they got introduced. Instead of kicking Bart to the curb, they are soon impressed by his ability to pick winning horses and make excellent Manhattans, and decide to take him under their wing. Bart begins to help Fat Tony, accepts a gift from him, and even hides a stolen cigarette shipment in his bedroom. But things take a dark turn when he's accused of murdering Principal Skinner and the mobsters start turning on him. The tension builds up to an epic trial scene where Fat Tony and his henchmen lie to the court and claim that Bart is the real mastermind behind the mafia.
Oh, it's true!
When things seem to be at their worst, Skinner bursts into the courtroom with a shocking revelation. In a jaw-dropping moment, Skinner reveals what really happened to him, and Bart's cleared of all charges. Bart then realizes that the life of crime is not for him and decides to leave the mafia for good. The Simpsons sit down for dinner with Selma and the new boyfriend, who turns out to be none other than Bart's arch-nemesis, Sideshow Bob, which if you didn't know, his last appearance was in season 1, Krusty Gets Busted. As they eat, Bob recounts his traumatic experiences in prison, including winning an Emmy that was later taken away. He admits that he once wanted to kill Bart, but claims to have changed since then. Bob shares the story of how he and Selma met through a prison pen pal program, and how their relationship has helped him turn over a new leaf. Before leaving, Sideshow Bob shocks everyone down by proposing to Selma, who eagerly accepts. Sideshow Bob appears on the Krusty telephone and tells Krusty that he holds no grudges. However, Bart is still afraid of his soon-to-be new uncle, as Bob had previously vowed to seek revenge on Bart for his imprisonment after framing Krusty for a robbery. Despite this, the wedding between Bob and Selma almost gets called off when Bob confesses his dislike for Selma's favorite show, MacGyver. Luckily, Homer steps in and shares his own experience of taking a walk or having a drink while Marge watches her shows, but still returning to her with love. Bob decides to do the same when MacGyver is on, and everything is resolved. At the wedding, everyone is overjoyed except for Bart, who still can't shake off his suspicions about Sideshow Bob. Later on, Selma and Bob send a honeymoon video to The Simpsons. In the video, Bob has a sudden outburst towards the staff, demanding a room with a fireplace. During the honeymoon, while MacGyver is on, Bart realizes that Sideshow Bob is planning to kill Selma. Sideshow Bob is walking around when suddenly his room explodes. He makes a tearful call to the front desk, and when he returns to the burnt out room, he's expecting to find Selma's remains waiting for him. Instead, he finds Bart waiting with the police. Selma slaps Bob for attempting to kill her and demands a separation. Bob is curious about how Bart figured out his plan. Bart explains that he noticed in Selma's honeymoon video that Bob was keen on having a fireplace in their room, and he saw the gas tap. Bob had turned on the gas before going for a walk, knowing that Selma wouldn't be able to smell it due to a childhood accident that caused her to lose her sense of taste and smell. Bart deduced that Selma would light a cigarette after watching MacGyver, and the match would be enough to cause an explosion. He then rushed to tell Homer, but after several failed attempts to explain the situation to him, he told Marge instead, which they then raced to the hotel just in time. Sideshow Bob is confused about why the room exploded if Selma was stopped. Chief Wiggum then admits that they were smoking celebratory cigars outside the room when he accidentally threw a match into the gas-filled room. Bob is then taken away, swearing to get out the next time the Democrats are in power. Everyone admits that Bob had fooled nearly everyone, and they thanked Bart for never losing his distrust. Marge and Homer attend parent-teacher night at Springfield Elementary School. They learn that while Lisa is excelling, Bart is causing trouble in school. Mrs. Krabappel suggests that if Bart turns his life around, he could become a Supreme Court justice. Inspired by this idea, Homer attempts to discipline Bart, but nothing seems to work. The situation escalates when Bart buys a ticket for the highly anticipated Itchy and Scratchy movie. He's left to babysit his little sister Maggie, but becomes distracted by the history of Itchy and Scratchy. This leads to a wild joyride in Homer's car and a prison break that turns Springfield into chaos.
All right, time for a crime spree.
In an attempt to teach Bart a lesson, Homer bans him from ever seeing the movie and tears up his ticket. For the next 2 months, Bart becomes increasingly angry and sad about missing the movie. He tries to watch it secretly, but Homer had instructed the theater staff not to sell him a ticket. Eventually, the Itchy and Scratchy movie is removed from theaters, and Bart reluctantly admits that Homer has won. However, Homer points out that they both won. Basically, by using a tough punishment, Homer taught Bart a valuable lesson about taking responsibility for his actions. 40 years later, they stumble upon the movie playing in the local theater, which Homer decides that Bart has finally learned his lesson. The two watch the movie together, laughing at the cartoon violence, enjoying the moment. An outbreak of the Osaka flu sweeps through Springfield after many residents purchase a juice loosener imported from Japan. This leads to many people becoming ill and bedridden, including the Simpsons family. Due to exhaustion from caring for her sick family, Marge forgets to pay for a bottle of bourbon while shopping at the Quickie Mart. Despite it being an honest mistake, Marge is treated as a hardened criminal and the town overreacts to her arrest. The Simpson family hires Lionel Hutz, an inept lawyer, to defend Marge at her trial. Helen Lovejoy spreads false rumors about Marge, implying that she is an alcoholic, and Professor Frank presents a conspiracy theory that Marge is involved in the assassination of JFK. Marge is sentenced to 30 days at Springfield's women's prison, where she makes friends with her cellmate Phillips and Tattoo Annie. Marge's absence is felt at home as Homer struggles to cope without her. However, Homer did have his fair share of fun. The Park Bake Sale, run by Helen Lovejoy and Maud Flanders, suffers badly as a result of Marge not being there to cook her famous marshmallow squares. The Springfield Park Commission fails to raise enough money to pay for a statue of Abraham Lincoln and are forced to purchase one of Jimmy Carter instead, which completely disgusts the townspeople. Seeing all of this unfold, a repentant Maud laments sadly that none of this would have happened if Marge had been there. The citizens demand the release of Marge as soon as possible. The people of Springfield cheerfully welcome her back and unveil a statue for her, which is actually the statue of President Carter with Marge's hairstyle on top. At the Springfield swap meet, Bart and Lisa discover an old album cover featuring Homer. Curious, they ask him about it, and he reveals that he recorded the album in 1985. Homer explains that he was part of a popular barbershop quartet with Chief Wiggum, Principal Skinner, and Apu. Their group gained local fame in Springfield, but soared to national stardom after recruiting a talented replacement for Chief Wiggum. The quartet auditioned several hopefuls, including Grandpa, Groundskeeper Willie, Jasper, and even Chief Wiggum in disguise. But when they heard Barney's beautiful Irish voice, they knew they had found their new member. Though people still like Chief Wiggum, Barney's singing ultimately won over the audience's hearts. The group settled on the name the B Sharps, intending it to be clever at first but gradually less funny with each mention. Fast forward to the present, after the swap meet, Homer shares a comical mishap where he sold a spare tire only for another tire to blow out, forcing Marge to walk to a gas station. Homer then recalls how the band's success took off when he found inspiration for a song after Marge got a baby on board sign. The song became a massive hit. They achieved fame performing in New York for the Statue of Liberty's centennial celebration, and even won a Grammy presented by David Crosby. Homer's encounter with George Harrison was amusingly marred by his focus on a brownie. Meanwhile, Chief Wiggum's singing career became a target of ridicule on various talk shows, much to his anger. As the B-Sharps gained popularity, Marge faced challenges in raising the children, and the band encountered internal conflicts due to Barney's new girlfriend, a Yoko Ono parody.
Number 8.
Ultimately, the B-Sharps disbanded, with members going back to their previous roles. Despite lingering mysteries about Homer's earnings and gold records, he reassures the kids that he'll address their questions another time before sending them to bed. After revisiting the album, the B-Sharps reunite for a rooftop concert at Moe's. Their performance captivates the crowd, even annoying the human fly and tricking the newspaper sales kid into selling papers with a false article about their comeback. During the concert, they catch the attention of George Harrison, who humorously remarks "It's been done" in reference to the Beatles' famous rooftop concert. As the episode wraps up, Chief Wiggum seems impressed but contemplates arresting or tear-gassing the group. While enduring the unfunny show Laid Up with McBain, where a former SS officer is the announcer and Rainier Wolfcastle faces backlash for a homophobic remark, Bart and Lisa receive mail. Lisa worries about her pen pal in a country ruled by General Krull, while Bart gets disturbing letters in blood. His paranoia heightens as more letters arrive, including one from Homer triggered by Bart labeling wide load on Homer's rear end. Sideshow Bob faces a parole hearing with Selma testifying against him. His lawyer justifies his past actions, encouraging others to admit wanting to harm Selma too. More hands raised, even from Selma's sister Patty. Despite Bob's disturbing tattoos, he convinces the board that the threats are misinterpreted German phrases, securing his parole. While watching the movie at Aztec Theater, the Simpsons confront a man blowing smoke and laughing loudly. They realize it's Sideshow Bob, who confesses to the threats. Marge reports him to the police, leading the family to enter the witness relocation program as the Thompsons, moving to Terror Lake with a new opening sequence titled The Thompsons. As the family drives to their new home singing Three Little Maids, they unknowingly carry Sideshow Bob beneath their car. Bob faces mishaps, speed bumps, hot coffee, and cacti damage. Settling in Terror Lake on a houseboat, Bob continues his pursuit, stepping on rakes and enduring injuries. Isolated, Bart spots Sideshow Bob emerging from under a car. A street parade and elephants injure Bob again. Bart tells Marge and Homer about Bob, but they dismiss his concerns. An anxious Bart heads to bed, only to be startled by Homer twice. First, Homer enters with a kitchen knife, offering brownies. Then he appears in a hockey mask, shouting about a new chainsaw frightening Bart. Sideshow Bob then infiltrates the family's houseboat, severs the rope, and traps the family. He aims to kill Bart, who flees but encounters alligators and eels. Bob catches up and grants Bart a final wish. Spotting a sign towards Springfield, Bart delays by asking Bob to sing the whole score of the HMS Pinafore. Sideshow Bob delivers an improvised opera performance, even changing into costumes, while Bart applauds. As Bob finishes up his performance and is ready to strike Bart, the boat hits a rock, police intervene, and Bob is arrested. The Simpsons' life returns to normal on Evergreen Terrace. Upon returning, they discover Grandpa's erratic behavior due to missed pills, which Homer forgot to give him before leaving. Inspectors from the Nuclear Regulatory Commission arrive at Springfield Nuclear Power Plant for a surprise evaluation using a simulated workstation in a van. To keep the least gifted employees hidden, Smithers assigns them the task of guarding a bee in the basement. Unfortunately, Homer accidentally releases the bees and gets noticed by the inspectors. Homer's turn in the van simulator causes a meltdown, despite no nuclear material being present. Mr. Burns attempts bribery and even tries to eject the inspectors, but fails. They demand that Homer undergo college training and nuclear physics or face legal action. As a college student now, Homer believes college life will be like a cliche comedy, with jock-nerd rivalry and standing up to an old-fashioned dean. However, Springfield University proves to be different. The dean, Bobby Peterson, is young, cool, and encourages informality. Despite this, Homer can't shake his grudge against the dean. Homer enjoys teasing his nuclear physics professor, causing a meltdown in class. As a result, he's assigned to tutoring with the nerds Benjamin, Doug, and Gary. Homer tries to loosen them up with a road trip, but it doesn't go as planned, with Bart and Lisa tagging along. Next, they prank by kidnapping a pig mascot. The dean catches the nerds with the pig, leading to their expulsion due to the pig's influential friends, including former President Richard Nixon. However, surprisingly, Homer escapes any consequences. Feeling remorseful for the nerds' expulsion, Homer invites them to stay at the Simpson home since they have nowhere else to go. However, their presence becomes bothersome to the family, using the phone line for their computers and interrupting the much anticipated Itchy and Scratchy cartoon. Bart and Marge reach their limit, demanding they leave the house. Homer devises a plan to win back favor with Dean Peterson and the nerds by staging an accident, but it goes awry, leading to Peterson getting run over. Feeling guilty, Homer confesses to all his pranks and visits Peterson in the hospital. Touched by Homer's honesty, Peterson allows the nerds to return to school. However, when Homer faces his final exam in nuclear physics, he fails despite the nerds' help. They change his grade to an A, but Marge insists he retake the course honestly. Homer goes to the Quickie Mart to buy some cheap expired meat. After eating it, he gets food poisoning and ends up in the hospital. He sees a TV show called Bite Back and learns about a phone number to call for consumer complaints. He calls the number and gets on the show. Kent Brockman, who is the host of the show, sends Homer into the Quickie Mart with a huge camera hat to find evidence of the wrongdoing. The camera eventually catches Apu dropping a hot dog on the floor and putting it back with the others. The evidence gets Apu fired and he attempts to take his own life, but he's stopped by the manager. Apu then visits the Simpsons house to apologize to the family and make things right. In the meantime, the Quickie Mart hires James Woods as Apu's replacement. Apu is still unable to face going back to the store, so he and Marge go shopping at Monstro Mart instead. As James Woods begins working at the Quickie Mart, he asks customers for feedback on his performance, while the Simpsons continue to praise Apu for his good qualities, leading to a classic song about how he doesn't need the Quickie Mart. Well, it turns out he actually does need the Quickie Mart. Apu decides to go to the Quickie Mart central office in India to get his job back, with Homer joining him. They climb a mountain to meet the Quickie Mart president, who offers them 3 questions. Homer wastes all 3 questions and they are told to leave. Back in Springfield, Apu faces his demons and meets James Woods, who is actually a fan of his. A robber comes into the store and shoots at James Woods, but Apu jumps in front of the bullet and saves his life. Dr. Hibbert reveals that the previous bullet lodged in Apu's chest saved him from the gunshot. Woods gets Apu his job back as a thank you for saving his life and leaves to fight aliens. The episode begins at the Springfield Nuclear Power Plant, where it's time for the Worker of the Week award to be given out. Homer is confident that he'll win the award, as every employee is entitled to it under the plant's union agreement. But to his dismay, Mr. Burns decides to give the award to an inanimate carbon rod, leaving Homer feeling dejected and unappreciated. Homer watches a space shuttle launch on TV, but finds it boring and switches the channel. NASA, concerned about their low ratings, decides to send an average person into space to boost popularity. Homer calls NASA to complain about their boring launch, leading them to believe he's the perfect candidate. When they confront him at Moe's Tavern, Homer initially blames Barney for the call, but when he realizes the opportunity at hand, he ends up taking full credit. NASA takes both Homer and Barney to Cape Canaveral for astronaut training exercises, but they can only select one of them for their upcoming space mission. Despite the alcohol ban imposed by NASA, Barney excels in the training and is chosen to fly with Buzz Aldrin and Race Banyon. However, after celebrating his victory with non-alcoholic champagne, Barney reverts to his alcoholic self and injures himself, declaring Homer the winner by default. Homer ends up sneaking potato chips on board the shuttle, which float around and cause chaos. Honestly, as a kid, I probably replayed this scene like 100 times. Although he saves the day by eating them, he accidentally destroys an ant farm, leading to further problems. After James Taylor suggests blowing the bugs out of the hatch, Homer almost gets sucked out himself but manages to save the day by sealing the door with a carbon rod. Despite Buzz Aldrin declaring Homer a hero, the inanimate carbon rod becomes the media's focus and receives all the credit. While Homer feels disappointed, his family still honors him for his achievement. Homer tries to get tickets to the Pigskin Classic football game but fails as a scalper buys all available tickets before him. He then tries to win tickets on the radio, but Ned wins them instead and invites Homer to come along. Although reluctant at first, Homer has a great time at the game and Ned gets him a signed football, which Homer calls Stitch Face. Homer's excessive gratitude annoys Ned and his family, leading Bart and Lisa to worry that their family's fun adventures will end. The two families take a road trip to Lake Springfield, where Homer's antics cause problems such as starting a food fight and damaging Ned's boat and car. Ned ends up realizing that he hates Homer and has a nightmare about shooting him. Ned tries to escape with his family, but Homer chases them like in Terminator 2. Chief Wiggum pulls over Ned for speeding and gives him a sobriety field test, embarrassing him in front of the church bus. The Flanders family is shunned at church and Ned has an outburst, causing Homer to defend him. Homer admits he was too clingy and that the world would be better if they learned from Ned's virtues. Everyone then apologizes for misjudging Ned and he and Homer leave church together. A week later, everything seems normal. Homer tells his family he inherited cursed land, but when Ned visits, Homer tells him to get lost, making Bart and Lisa happy again. Mr. Burns has a near-death experience in the bathtub and realizes that if he were to die, no one would be able to run his power plant. To find a suitable heir, he holds tryouts for local kids. When Bart auditions, Mr. Burns cruelly rejects him by using the machine to kick him in the rear. Seeking revenge, Bart wreaks havoc on Mr. Burns' property by smashing windows, destroying statues, and filling his car with water. Despite his mischievous behavior, Mr. Burns notices Bart's cunning and deviousness and decides to make him his heir. Homer eagerly agrees when Mr. Burns offers Bart the chance to inherit his fortune. Marge thinks Bart should spend some time with Mr. Burns. Bart enjoys the luxurious lifestyle and even gets Krusty the Clown to deliver pizza. When he returns home, Bart is unhappy with his family's lifestyle and returns to Burns. The Simpsons try to get Bart back, but the police and attorney Lionel Hutz are no help. Their attempt to hire a private investigator results in Hans Moleman being brainwashed into believing he's the Simpsons' son. Bart is then shown a video of his family supposedly not caring about him, which Bart then grows closer to Mr. Burns and is invited to fire employees of the power plant, but draws the line at firing his own father. When Bart tries to fire Mr. Burns instead, Burns disowns him as his heir. Eventually, Bart learns the truth about his fake family in the video and is reunited with his real family. Homer introduces Bart to his new brother Hans Moleman, but Marge wants him out of the house immediately. Bart decides to bring Santa's Little Helper for show and tell day, which instantly everybody falls in love with. However, chaos ensues when Santa's Little Helper manages to escape from his locked closet and crawls into the air vents.
Lunch, Lady Doris. Have you got any grease?
Yes, we do.
Then grease me up, woman!
After retrieving the dog from the vents, groundskeeper Willie's fall onto Superintendent Chalmers becomes the final straw, leading to Superintendent firing Skinner on the spot and leaving Bart with a heavy feeling of guilt. Ned Flanders takes over as the new principal after Skinner is fired, but he proves to be too lenient with the rules. The school descends into chaos with class riots erupting and even Martin Prince being kept as the class pet in a cage. Meanwhile, Skinner rejoins the army only to find that the discipline he once knew as a veteran of the Vietnam War is no longer the same. Bart feels sympathetic towards Skinner and decides to take action to get Flanders fired. When Superintendent Chalmers pays a visit to the school, Bart sees an opportunity and tries to convince him to fire Flanders for failing to maintain order in the school. Chalmers is hesitant at first, but his decision is swayed when he overhears Flanders promoting religion, which is illegal in public schools. Flanders is fired on the spot and Skinner is reinstated as principal. While Skinner and Bart know that they can no longer be friends with Skinner in his new role, they part ways on good terms and continue to cherish their friendship in their own way. The episode begins with the Simpson family celebrating Maggie's first birthday. During the party, Abe and Jackie connect, and Marge suggests setting them up on a date. They fall in love, but Homer opposes the relationship because it would make him and Marge step-siblings if they get married. Abe and Jackie's relationship goes smoothly until Jackie finds Mr. Burns more attractive during a night out dancing. Burns then declares that he is in love with Mrs. Bouvier, which is against Marge's interests. On the wedding day, Mr. Burns and Jacqueline are about to tie the knot. However, just moments before Mrs. Bouvier becomes Mrs. Montgomery Burns, Abe interrupts the ceremony to voice his objection to the union. Ultimately, Jackie decides not to marry either Burns or Abe, and while Grandpa is content with her choice, they both board a bus with apprehension about what lies ahead.
Ralph, this better not be about your cat.
In this episode, we see Lisa, the smartest student in Springfield Elementary, facing a challenge in the form of a new student, Allison Taylor. Allison is younger, having skipped a grade for her intelligence, and she's also skilled on the saxophone, just like Lisa. Lisa wants to be friends with Allison, but she struggles with feelings of envy and jealousy as she realizes that Allison is just as smart, if not smarter than her. The tension between Lisa and Allison comes to a head during the school's annual diorama competition. Allison chose to recreate a scene from the Edgar Allan's pose The Telltale Heart, and her diorama was exceptional. However, Bart convinces Lisa to switch Allison's diorama with one containing a rotten cow's heart. When Principal Skinner sees the sabotaged diorama, he not only criticizes it, but also begins to question Allison's overall qualifications. Feeling guilty, Lisa confesses to the switch, and both she and Allison lose to Ralph Wiggum. In the end, Lisa and Allison put aside their differences and become friends, walking away with Ralph, who accidentally breaks his action figures.
I bent my walkie.
Marge and Homer's marriage is threatened by their fading sex life due to various interruptions. Bart seeks comfort in their bed after a UFO scare, but Marge refuses. They try to revive their romance by getting a book on tape called Erotic America. Their attempts fail and they throw the tape away out the window. Grandpa creates a tonic that reignites their and the rest of Springfield's love life. Homer and Grandpa start selling it and become successful, but the town becomes deserted as couples spend more time together. The children think their parents have turned into reverse vampires and fear the dark. During the sales trip, Homer and Grandpa visit their old farmhouse. They argue about their relationship, and Grandpa reveals he never encouraged Homer because he thought he was a screw-up. Eventually, Homer gets angry and abandons Grandpa on the roadside after a hurtful comment. Homer attempts to be a better father but ends up being overbearing. They both reflect on their mistakes at the old farmhouse and they accidentally start a fire. As the house burns, they reconcile and forgive each other, acknowledging their screw-ups. In this episode, Homer becomes suspicious of Lenny and Carl's newfound privileges at the nuclear plant. His investigation leads him to the discovery of a secret society called the Stonecutters. Homer desires to join the group, but learns that membership is only granted to those who are either born into the society or have saved the life of a member. During dinner, Homer expresses admiration for the Stonecutters and later finds out that his father is a member. As a result, he's able to join the society and experiences the benefits that come with the memberships. However, while enjoying the dinner, Homer accidentally uses the society's sacred parchment as a napkin, tissue, and e-cleaner, resulting in his punishment of being stripped of his stonecutter robes and underwear. As a surprising twist, it is revealed that Homer has a birthmark in the shape of a stonecutter emblem, marking him as the chosen one who is destined to lead a society to greatness. Homer is then crowned in a scene parodying The Last Emperor. We'll save talking about what movies The Simpsons have done a parody on in a different video. Despite Lisa's urging to use his power for good, Homer ignores her and has Bart to drag her away. Eventually, Homer realizes that power doesn't bring happiness and attempts to help the community. However, his actions drive away the other Stonecutters who form a new society, the Ancient Mystic Society of No Homers, which obviously doesn't allow any man with a name Homer to join, except for one other man named Homer Glumplich. When Marge visits the abandoned hall to console him, she reminds Homer that he belongs to an exclusive club, the Simpsons family. In this episode, Homer recounts the story of Maggie's birth to Bart and Lisa after they question the lack of photos of her in their family album. Homer ends up quitting his job at the power plant to find his dream job at the bowling alley after receiving a paycheck that clears him of all his debts. Everything seemed to be perfect for Homer until we figured out that Marge is pregnant. Homer was so blind to obvious signs. This is classic Simpsons humor at its finest. It didn't work out at the bowling alley, so Homer had no choice but to go back to his old job at the power plant. As punishment, Mr. Burns framed a plaque in Homer's office that says, "Don't forget you're here forever." The episode ends with Bart asking where does he keep the photos of Maggie, with Homer replying, "The photos are where he needs them most," which are on the photo frame at his work that reads, "Do it for her." This scene is a heartwarming moment that showcases Homer's love for Maggie and his family. Krusty's lavish lifestyle is draining his profits and he's in debt to the mob. To avoid bankruptcy, his accountant proposes an idea, starting a clown college to train others to impersonate him at events. Homer notices a billboard for the clown college but ignores it at first. However, the image of clowns sticks in his mind, leading to a bizarre hallucination that convinces him to enroll.
I'm going to clown college.
After graduating, Homer begins attending Krusty events, but the antics soon wear him out. Surprisingly, his striking resemblance to Krusty leads people to believe he's the real deal, scoring him freebies and kickbacks. Fat Tony confronts Krusty for his debt, but Krusty evades them by sneaking off to the bathroom. Spotting Homer attempting to buy a car, Tony and his henchmen, Legs and Louie, take a shot at him, unintentionally riddling the car with bullets, which the car salesmen refer to as speed holes. Meanwhile, Krusty undergoes plastic surgery, but things go hilariously wrong, leaving him with breast instead of a new face. Later, when they spot Homer at his house making holes in his car, inspired by the car salesman's speed holes comments, Legs attempts to shoot him but accidentally hits Ned Flanders twice. The mobsters then decide to kidnap Homer, who insists he's not Krusty but 4 different other people. However, this only makes matters worse as each of these individuals has a hit on them for various reasons. At their hideout, Homer faces a life-threatening situation and must perform a trick. When he fails, he's on the brink of being shot, but the real Krusty arrives, facing his own troubles. Together, they perform the trick successfully, impressing the mobsters with additional stunts in the act. Homer is allowed to leave and Krusty's life is spared. Surprisingly, his debt to the mobsters is just $48, which he promptly settles by paying Don Vittorio DiMaggio $50 and receiving $2 in change. Santa's little helper becomes too energetic for the Simpsons and their attempts to tire him out fail. Bart and Lisa play ball with him but end up falling asleep. Later on, the family follows him to a dog track where they discover his love for a greyhound racer named She's the Fastest. They bring her home as the owner explains that once the dog falls in love, they lose their racing spirit. Santa's little helper and his girlfriend share romantic experiences together and have puppies, causing chaos in the Simpsons household. Homer and Marge initially try to find new homes for the puppies, but they are unable to be separated. Mr. Burns offers to take the puppies, but when the family questions his motives, Burns and Smithers steal them while the family aren't looking. Bart and Lisa find the puppies at Burns' mansion and witness him being surprisingly kind to them, giving them a bath and showing favoritism towards a puppy named Little Monty. Just when Bart and Lisa start to question their judgment about Burns, they witness him entering another room with a loaded gun, intending to kill the puppies to make a tuxedo out of them. Bart and Lisa then rescue the puppies from Burns' mansion by tossing them down the laundry chute. However, Burns catches them at the bottom and prepares to kill the puppies. Bart tricks Burns by making all the puppies stand up on their legs, making it impossible for Burns to identify Little Monty. Burns is overcome by the cuteness of the standing dogs and decides to not kill them. Instead, he buys them all and raises them as racing dogs. The Greyhounds become world champions and win millions of dollars for Burns. In this classic episode, Marge lectures Bart on having more respect for Springfield after catching him writing his name in cement. Her method of repeating herself during the speech causes her words to stick in Bart's mind and he soon begins to learn more about the city of Springfield.
The lemon tree's gone.
Bart and his friends embark on a mission to get back Springfield's stolen prize lemon tree, which was taken by their rival town of Shelbyville. I personally find it absolutely hilarious that the lemon tree is being used as a source of pride for Springfield.
Shut up!
When Marge uncovers Bart's latest mission, she gets Homer and several other parents to go to Shelbyville and find him using Ned Flanders' RV. After finding out why the kids traveled to Shelbyville, Homer demanded their tree to be returned, but the owner of the impound lot taunts them and refuses to surrender it.
You must be stupider than you look.
Using the Trojan horse strategy, they park the RV outside the hospital, drawing the attention of the impound lot. As night falls, the crew emerges from the RV, which Homer famously says no one in history has done anything this clever. The impound lot owner catches them in the act, but the gang outsmarts him and returns the tree to its rightful place in Springfield. In this episode, Homer surprises Marge with a trip to a relaxation center, leaving the children under Grandpa's care. Unfortunately, while Homer and Marge are away, the kids experience a series of unfortunate events. Bart catches lice from Milhouse's monkey, which leads to his clothes being burned at school. Lisa's prescription shoes are stolen by bullies, and when they all return home, they find their house in disarray. Due to a misinterpretation of the situation, the Child Welfare Agency is called, prompting an investigation into the family's living conditions. When Homer and Marge return, they find the agents taking Bart, Lisa, and Maggie away, accusing them of being unfit parents. The kids are then taken to a foster home located next door at the house of Ned Flanders. They find themselves having to adjust to Flanders' unusual choices, including cucumbers with cottage cheese masquerading as nachos, early bedtimes when it's still light outside, and hours of plain Bible bombardment. When Ned discovers that none of the Simpsons kids have been baptized, he becomes faint and decides to give them a proper baptism. Homer and Marge are unable to communicate with their children and attend parenting classes to become better parents. Marge feels embarrassed while Homer seems to learn a lot. They are then declared fit parents and go to pick up their children, but find a note saying "Gone baptizing." Homer intervenes and gets accidentally baptized instead of Bart. After a brief moment of grace, Homer reverts to his old self and takes his kids back from Flanders. Maggie wavers between staying with Flanders and going home, but ultimately chooses to leave with Marge. The episode begins with Mr. Burns organizing an exercise program at the power plant. Homer sees this as an opportunity to get out of the daily grind and decides to find a way to work from home. Quick disclaimer, I don't recommend doing this. He learns that obesity is considered a disability and decides to put on weight until he weighs 300 pounds, which he kind of went over. With his newfound status, Homer is now able to work from home and is provided with a computer workstation.
Thank you for your pity.
As Homer starts to enjoy the joys of working from home, Marge confronts him as she is concerned for his health and also confesses she's losing attraction towards him. However, Homer insists that it's everything he has ever dreamed of. One day, Homer leaves a drinking bird hitting the Y button to cover him while he goes out to see a movie. After being refused to be seated due to his size, Homer returns home to find the bird knocked over and a nuclear meltdown at the power plant is imminent. Homer then rushes to the power plant
The trash berry.
and ultimately saves the day, all thanks to his large stomach getting stuck in the release tube which blocked the toxic gas from escaping. Krusty's show takes a serious turn as he thanks kids for a food drive, but the donated items becomes an obstacle course. Bart and Lisa enjoy the chaos and Krusty teasing Sideshow Mel. In Springfield prison, Sideshow Bob's model of Westminster Abbey shatters due to the prisoners laughing at the chaos as well. Entering a room filled with laughing inmates enjoying Krusty's antics, Sideshow Bob's bitterness emerges. He criticizes trash TV until Rupert Murdoch intervenes due to network ownership. Working at an airfield, Bob's plan develops, bothered by TV content. In Springfield, the Simpson family joins an air show. Meanwhile, Bob poses as an Air Force colonel, infiltrating a hangar to find a massive nuclear weapon. Colonel Happablap starts an air show, but a signal glitch reveals Sideshow Bob on Tyrannovision. Bob demands TV shutdown and threatens a nuclear bomb detonation. Panic ensues and people flee the airfield, separating Bart and Lisa from their parents. Mayor Quimby and Colonel Happablap collaborate as guards search for Sideshow Bob. Running out of options, Quimby concedes to Bob's demand, despite Krusty's objection. Transmitters are destroyed, stations prepare farewells, and Kent Brockman reminisces on air. Bob, using a stolen Duff blimp, celebrates his successful demand broadcast. Krusty resists, seeking to keep his audience share by improvising a show in a shelter. Sideshow Bob, angered, calls it a failure, deeming Krusty's makeshift show subpar. Bart and Lisa reach the Duff blimp's cockpit. Bob impatiently tries to detonate the bomb, but it's a dud. Bob takes Bart hostage, landing the blimp and holding a knife to his neck. Lisa escapes and alerts authorities to Sideshow Bob's location. Chief Wiggum's arrest attempt fails. Sideshow Bob takes Bart to a hangar, crashes a Harrier jet, then steals the Wright brothers' plane. Air Force jets attempt interception, comically missing the mark. Bob holds a knife to Bart's neck, attempting to kill him once more. He then plots to crash the plane into the shed where Krusty hides, shouting "Die, Krusty, die!" as he flies. However, the plane fails, bouncing harmlessly off the shack's roof. Sideshow Bob is arrested by Chief Wiggum. Bart's family reunites as Bob laments his cliched failure. Then Grandpa appears on a motorcycle, announcing he'll head to Lollapalooza, which the Simpsons then react with a sense of deja vu. The episode starts off with Homer at a deserted Moe's Tavern, which they then decide to go to the bowling alley. Seeking a new challenge, Homer proposes that Moe, Apu, and Otto should form a bowling team. However, in order to compete in the league, they need $500. In a stroke of luck, Homer goes to Mr. Burns' office just as he's under the influence of ether, and in his delirium, Mr. Burns mistakes Homer for the iconic doughboy Poppin' Fresh and gives him the money that they need. With their newfound funds, the Pimp House dominates the competition and sets their sights on the league trophy. But their triumph is short-lived as Mr. Burns realizes his mistake and joins the team to seek revenge. Also, they had to remove Otto from the team in order for Mr. Burns to join. Homer, Moe, and Apu become increasingly frustrated with Mr. Burns' sabotaging tactics, causing them to lose every game. They demand that Homer confront Mr. Burns and kick him off the team. However, when Mr. Burns surprises them with new uniforms, the team has a change of heart and allows him back on the team. As they head into the championship game against the Holy Rollers, they find themselves in an unexpected situation.
Spoiler alert!
In a shocking twist, Mr. Burns ends up winning the game for the team. I mean, Otto did kind of help him out, but instead of sharing the trophy, he takes it all for himself. Homer refuses to let Mr. Burns take all the glory and takes matters into his own hands by breaking into his mansion to steal the trophy. Unfortunately, he's met with ferocious guard dogs and he's mauled while his teammates abandon him. In this episode, Grandpa breaks the family's television while trying to fix it. This leads the family to take a trip to the Ogdenville Outlet Mall, where Marge and Lisa wander off to a discounted store. Marge finds a beautiful Chanel suit that has been marked down from $2,800 to $90. At first, she is hesitant to buy it, but Lisa convinces her that it's a great deal. Marge becomes infatuated with the suit and wears it constantly, begging Homer to take her somewhere fancy. One day, while wearing the suit to the Quickie Mart, Marge runs into an old classmate, Evelyn Peters. Evelyn is impressed by Marge's fashion sense and invites her to the Springfield Country Club, which is a club full of rich snobs. The rest of the family initially feels out of place at the country club, but they eventually find their own ways to enjoy themselves. Homer discovers a talent for golf, much to everyone's surprise, but I'll leave the details of his venture for you to discover by watching the episode yourself. Back at the club, Marge is offended by a snobby member's comment and becomes determined to alter her suit and impress members at the country club. However, she accidentally destroys the suit on the sewing machine while Lisa annoyingly asks questions. Marge rushes back to the Ogdenville Outlet Mall but is unable to find a suitable replacement for the upcoming Springfield Country Ball. Desperate to fit in, she ultimately decides to purchase an expensive dress at the actual Chanel store. When Marge and the rest of the Simpsons arrive at the party, she criticizes her family's behavior, including Maggie's. However, Marge realizes that she has changed for the worse and decides to leave the party, and instead they go to Krusty Burger, where she's much more comfortable. In this episode, Mr. Burns hosts an employee appreciation night at the drag racing track. He complains about his foam novelty finger and he's left alone in his limo, where he's approached by a drunken Lenny, which frightens Mr. Burns. The next day, Burns complains he can't complete the junior jumble because his pen doesn't work on laminated paper. Smithers has a breakdown and attempts to drown himself in an office water dispenser. Burns forces him to take a vacation and search for a replacement, which he ultimately selects Homer. Homer works as hard as he can to impress his boss. Even Bart and Lisa exploit Homer by making him do Bart's long division and driving Lisa to the library. No matter what Homer does, Mr. Burns mocks Homer, and he becomes increasingly angry until he eventually punches Burns in the face. Homer then runs home believing he has killed Mr. Burns. Burns begins doing his own work to avoid Homer, and he starts to enjoy it. Smithers then returns to find Burns congratulating Homer on helping him to do his own work. Burns says to Homer that he can return to Sector 7G to find that Smithers has been fired. Smithers tries to find employment elsewhere but is unsuccessful. Desperate for work, Smithers turns to Moe's Tavern, where he is tasked with distracting Barney during the midnight beer delivery. While at the tavern, Homer comes up with a plan to help Smithers get his job back. The next day, Homer pretends to be Burns' mother on the phone. As a result, Burns witnesses the whole thing and scolds both Homer and Smithers. Homer and Smithers end up getting into a physical fight, with Burns attempting to break it up. In the chaos, Homer accidentally knocks over a bear statue, causing it to crash through the window and sending Burns falling to the street below. Burns becomes dependent on Smithers once again and asks if Homer got what he deserved. In a surprising twist, Smithers gives Homer a gift basket as a thank you for helping him get his job back. This episode begins with a bear blocking the road of Springfield, causing absolute chaos. Flanders runs for safety while Homer and Wiggum try to take down the bear. The incident leads Homer to demand better protection against bear attacks. Mayor Quimby starts the bear patrol, but it proves to be expensive and citizens must pay $5 more in taxes to keep it running. Homer leads a mob to City Hall to protest the high taxes, but Mayor Quimby blames illegal immigrants and proposes a vote to deport them. Homer talks to Apu, who reveals that he is an illegal immigrant and decides he desperately does not want to be deported, so he gets fake United States citizenship documents from Fat Tony. After trying to act like an American for one day, Apu decides that he can't keep it up and that he has to get American citizenship the fair way, mainly because of a memory of his parents telling him he always has to be himself. Homer gives Apu false information about US history and government, causing Apu to fall asleep while studying. When Apu wakes up, he realizes he has forgotten everything that Homer taught him. However, Lisa sees this as an opportunity for Apu to take the citizenship test. Apu passes the test and the Simpsons throw him a party to celebrate his new American citizenship. During Homer's nap, Lisa predicts a hurricane. Springfield panics, stocking up at the Quickie Mart. Ned protects his home with a tent-like guard. The Simpsons bond in the basement amid hurricane gags. The storm ends with no home damage, except Flanders, which is destroyed despite precautions. Ned relieved as his family's safe, but no insurance means they have to move in the church basement. There he turns on the news to show that his business, the Leftorium, is being looted. The Bible gives him a paper cut, questioning God's punishment, despite strict adherence to its contradictory advice, yielding no answer. Marge rallies Springfield to rebuild Flanders' home. Quick but shoddy work disappoints Ned. Leaving, Homer asks Ned about the house that Love built, but it collapses. Ned, usually calm, finally explodes with anger. Ned's furious outburst shocks the crowd, singling out Marge for her constant positivity, Bart for mocking him, Lisa for intruding, Chief Wiggum for incompetence, Krusty for not being funny, Lenny for an assumed offense, Moe for being ugly and hateful, and brands Homer the worst person, which he takes lightly. Ned, fearing a mental breakdown, enters Carmwood Mental Hospital. A nurse then contacts his childhood psychiatrist, Dr. Foster. Ned had forgotten his wild past due to the University of Minnesota Spankologically protocol, which involved intense spanking for months. Dr. Foster seeks Homer's help to assist Ned in expressing emotions. Homer's candid approach makes Ned admit his fear of being human, leading to a rant about his dislikes and his parents. He then admits hating his parents, which then Dr. Foster deemed him cured. Ned is released, which he is greeted by Springfield's people. He pledges to express better and jokingly adds he might run them down if he is really angry. Everything then returns to normal and Homer tells Ned he's crazy, and they both laugh. Principal Skinner and Edna Krabappel attend Martin's birthday party and end up having a conversation, which leads them to discovering that they have romantic feelings for each other. The two adults end up kissing in Martin's pink playhouse in an act witnessed by Bart. Bart is then bribed to keep Seymour and Edna's secret relationship by being hired as their gopher. However, he grows tired of constantly being interrupted and embarrassed in front of his classmates. In a fit of anger, Bart exposes their relationship by revealing them kissing in front of the whole school.
School dismissed.
Superintendent Chalmers confronts Seymour about his inappropriate behavior, informing him that the entire town is outraged. He gives Seymour an ultimatum: end the relationship or face immediate dismissal. Upon apologizing to Bart for his previous actions, Seymour receives encouragement from Bart to take a stand for himself. Seymour and Edna proceed to lock down the school, contact the media, and issue their demands: the restoration of their jobs and for the townspeople to refrain from interfering in their relationship. Despite the allegations made against him, Skinner denies any inappropriate behavior and claims to be a virgin. His explanation is accepted by everyone, as it is deemed unlikely for a 44-year-old to provide false information about their sexual history. Chalmers ultimately agrees to restore Skinner and Edna to their positions as though the incident never occurred. The episode begins with Lisa confronting Principal Skinner about the quality of education they receive in class. She feels like the videos they watch are not enough to challenge her and make her reach her full potential. However, Skinner brushes her concerns and tells that if he makes the curriculum harder, other students would complain. Meanwhile, Bart gets his hands on several police megaphones and creates a sonic shockwave that shatters every piece of glass in town. As a result, Homer and Marge decide to send him to military school to discipline him. However, they actually trick Bart into thinking that they are taking him to Disneyland, but in reality, they're actually taking taken him to military school. Lisa decides to join Bart at the military, even though it's a boys-only institution. She's the first girl to ever join the academy, and as a result, she gets a hard time from the other cadets. As the term progresses, the students must pass a physical test called the Eliminator, which is a 150-foot hand-over-hand crawl across the 60 gorge hemp jute line with a blister factor of 12. The rope is suspended a full 40 feet over a solid British acre of old-growth Connecticut valley thorn bushes. Bart helps Lisa train in secret, and they both pass the test. Lisa even receives a medal for satisfactory completion of the 2nd grade. Homer and Marge come to pick up Bart and Lisa from the school, and they agree to take him to Disneyland for real this time. However, they trick them again and take them to the dentist instead. Springfield gathers to watch the Monty Burns casino demolition. Bart's comment makes a worker realize he set it to explode, not implode, enveloping the town in smoke. Marge suggests a car wash. Homer resists until Lenny's suggestion prompts him to go. While at the car wash, Marge finds her favorite music on sale. Homer then questions Ned's senior discount, accusing him of lying about his age. At church, Homer calls Ned a shyster, but Ned reveals he's actually 60 and people start to pity his disciplined life. On the ride home, Ned asks if he's boring, and his family's predictions confirm it. He sees Abe and Jasper in a sports car, but they're actually being carjacked. Wanting change, Ned keeps his mustache untrimmed, but it's not enough. He seeks Homer's help, signing papers for Homer's guidance. Homer then teaches Ned impulsiveness. They head to the Monty Burns casino, which was recently destroyed, and then they decide to go to Las Vegas. Around 8:30 p.m., still en route to Vegas, Ned wants to call Maud, but Homer lies, saying he already did. Arriving in Vegas, Ned wants to leave, but Joan Rivers randomly offers an infomercial spot. At Nero's palace, Lance Murdoch, the stunt performer from Bart the Daredevil, performs. Homer tells Ned that it's his time to be exciting, but Ned hesitates and Homer takes the risk. But Lance gets hurt due to Homer's recklessness. They then go to the casino, play craps, win, and go to a bar. Ned asks how Homer acts without thinking, which he replies alcohol is the secret, so they order more. Next, Ned and Homer wake in a hot tub clothed. They discover they've unknowingly married waitresses from Nero's palace. Skeptical, they are shown a video of the ceremony. After treating them to a buffet, Homer and Ned escape. The waitresses alert security, leading to their expulsion from Vegas. On the way home, Homer concocts an alien abduction story. The credits rolled as they are heard in a humorous encounter with vultures. Apu invites the Simpsons over for dinner, but their plans take a turn for the worse when Marge unintentionally triggers a fight between Apu and Manjula. With Valentine's Day around the corner, Apu confides in Homer about his concerns that Manjula doesn't love him anymore. Homer reassures him that she wouldn't leave him before Valentine's Day, which gives Apu some hope. Apu, desperate to reignite the spark in his relationship with Manjula, decides to go out and surprise her with numerous romantic gestures. While some of his efforts do succeed in fixing his marriage, they inadvertently cause problems in other people's relationships. Homer, Chief Wiggum, Dr. Hibbert, Moe, and Ned Flanders, which they did kick out, team up to investigate Apu's romantic surprises, determined to stop him. They follow him around and eventually end up at the airport. Spotting Elton John at the airport, they assume he's there to perform a concert for Apu and Manjula. As it turns out, Apu has arranged for a skyrider to write a message of love to Manjula in the sky. Chaos ensues when Homer jumps on the plane during takeoff in an attempt to stop the message from being written. In the end, the skyrider only manages to spray part of the message, which causes confusion among the other women in Springfield who believe the message is for them. With the help of Elton John's concert, Apu and Manjula are able to reconcile and strengthen their bonds, while the rest of Springfield's relationships return to normal. In this episode, Homer reluctantly agrees to go to a French-Canadian circus with his family, but a snowstorm hits Springfield and cuts the performance short. Meanwhile, Bart and Lisa are forced to go to school, where they watch an old Christmas film until the DVD overheats and the school becomes snowed in. When the students become uncontrollable, Skinner resorts to using his armor instincts to rule with an iron fist. Bart attempts to escape by tunneling through the snow at night, but Principal Skinner catches him in the act. In an attempt to stop Bart's escape, Skinner tries to collapse the tunnel, but ends up buried in the snow with only his head exposed. As a result, the children tie him up in a dodgeball sack and gag him. Homer and Flanders use a snowplower, which is basically Ned's car, to save the kids. On their journey, Homer and Flanders get stuck in ice after hitting a fire hydrant. Homer's attempt to free them by revving the engine results in carbon monoxide flooding the car, causing wild hallucinations. Eventually, they receive a message from Skinner's hamster and head for the school, but crash into a salt silo, which ends up melting the snow and saving their kids from being snowed in. At a church ice cream social, Ned Flanders meets Rachel Jordan from the episode Alone Again Natura Diddly. He invites her to stay the night, assuring that he's moved on from Maud's death. At his place, Rachel sees many photos of Maud. Despite Ned's efforts, she sleeps on Maud's side of the bed. Ned tries to make Rachel look like Maud, but she leaves in shock, which makes Ned realize he hasn't truly moved on. The Simpsons help sort Maud's belongings while Ned visits the eye doctor. They speed up the process with a shredder, even altering a wedding photo. Discovering an overlooked sketchbook, Ned finds Maud's dream of an amusement park named Praiseland. He then buys Storytown Village from the rich Texan to honor her wish. After weeks of work, Praiseland opens with attractions like palm readings and a Maud statue. However, the park fails. When people start leaving, a floating Maud mask appears, followed by Skinner's strange reaction and a heavenly vision. The park then gains fame as Miracle Maud and becomes a hit. Discovering a gas leak, Ned realizes the park's miracles are due to intoxication. Concerned for safety, he contacts the gas supplier, learning that it's poisonous and permanent. Homer dismisses worries, but incidents involving the statue and gas leak dangers unfold. Ned and Homer stop potential disaster, but visitors misconstrue their actions, leading to Praiseland's closure. Ned again runs into Rachel, who is wearing a wig after the hair incident. They then go back to his house where they make the bed, erasing Maud's indentation.